And how are we doing? Once again, it's time for another episode of Tears of Trust. I'm your host, Maynard T-Bear. I'd like to thank all my supporters and people who have been tuning in. New podcast since November. Update on our followings, folks. We've got TikTok. We're rounding in at about 2,600 people now, with Instagram coming in at about 3,400 right now as of today. Our YouTube channel is now at 1,440 people. Facebook's still in around 700 or so. So thank you very much for following me, supporting me. Greatly appreciated. Once again, if you're in the workplace and you're having problems as part of a team, available on Amazon, my book. That's released on Amazon now. Onward Buttercups, and it's a layman's guide to building teams that can get shit done. Simple as that. So there's a lot of good stuff in there for frontline supervisors, a lot of good stuff for people on the front line doing things, and it might help you understand the team dynamics that you're involved in right now. Today's guest on the episode is going to be a newfound friend, a lady I popped across on one of my many feeds, and her name is Sterling, of all things. And what Sterling does is manifesting. And wow, that's a pretty cool subject in itself. And that's why I've asked Sterling Meyer to join us here today. That being said, Sterling, could you introduce yourself for the followers?
Yeah, thank you so much, Maynard, for having me on your show. I am so happy to be here and I'm really excited. I know we're going to have a really great time. And yes, I'm Sterling Meyer, Manifestation Life Coach. Something I've been doing for over 20 years, but actually only started working with people through word of mouth 12 years ago. So yeah, it's been really exciting and it just took off. It was something that, started out as a hobby of mine when I was about 16 years old, actually. And picked me as a profession. I did not expect to go public with this. Again, I really didn't. I didn't plan on working with people and helping them, but of course, I absolutely love it. And I can't imagine something, finer. It's my purpose. That's why I jump out of bed. I'm so excited. And working with people, we get to celebrate and celebrate wins all the time. So what could be better than, a celebratory kind of job to have in the world? But yeah, it started out as a hobby, and I was always noticing at a very young age that getting clued in that life wasn't logical, because I saw a lot of results that didn't seem to make sense in a logical kind of way. And I was like, there must be some truth or reason behind it. I didn't see it as random. I saw that there had to have been something in place that most of us don't realize that then produce that result. And I was talking with my aunt about this when I was 16, and she was like, here you go, read this book. And now I think about that book, and it was actually written in the 50s, called Psycho-Cybernetics, and by a Dr. Maxwell Maltz. She gave me that and I read it and I was like, this sounds great. This is cool. This is wonderful. I love this, right? It's answering those questions about how do we produce the results and experiences that we want in life, and everybody wants that, including myself. So this was giving me some clues as to how to do that. And that it was very possible, and it was very illuminating, but it wasn't life-changing, because even though I really threw myself into it to try to really understand it and replicate some of the stories and shares that were in this book, I failed miserably. And I literally can remember being that teenager and looking at the back of the book and seeing his picture, the author's picture. I'm like, why can't I figure this out? When, it's how come you got all this great stuff to share, but I can't be a part of it, So I just continued reading everything that I could and studying more and more. And although it was very illuminating and it gave me a lot of food for thought, it gave me a lot of ideas and concepts that I really felt was honest and truthful, but it remained concepts. It did not translate or transfer over into direct experience. And so again, I was like frustrated with it. And there would be points where I would just, this is great, da, da, da. Now I've got a question, have nobody to ask about it. Or, okay, am I interpreting this right? Or, okay, so practice, gratitude, for instance. It's like, okay, but then did I do it right? Did I do it enough? Did I practice this in a way that's going to change my life? And then I couldn't answer those questions. So I just was so frustrated that I just, gave up, even though I knew there was truth here. I just didn't have a way to access it for myself. So that gave me the impetus I also was able to distinguish what were really important points. And also I distinguished a lot of stuff that just was fluff, so to speak, that just complicated things, that was extraneous, that was not necessary, made it more of a complicated thing than it really needed to be. So that's what started me to create this system. I cherry picked those things and I started organizing it into a step-by-step practice where it was like whole and complete and everything was there. No dead ends, no more giving up or anything like that. And exactly what to do. It's like a recipe, exactly what to do to produce those results. Perfect analogy is like if you were reading a book, or if I was reading a book all about like how to bake cakes, right? Or these are cakes that you can create. This is what you can create. And they talk about it, upside down ones, round ones, square ones, small ones, little ones, whatever. And you read about it and you're like, oh, well, now you know about the world of cakes. But then at the very end, there's no recipes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They like give you a couple of clues, like, well, there's flour involved, there's some eggs involved,
That was your initial immersement into manifesting, was a book with no recipes. Is that what you're?
Yes.
So yeah. That prompted that. So I'm going to stop us a little bit here, just for those followers on my channel. Can I get you to explain what manifesting is? Like you and I talked ahead of the show, so I'm more up to speed, but can we just back it up a little bit?
Okay, yeah. Well, as I was like reviewing people and their lives, and I noticed how different they were and how, this person has this. Remember, I was talking about the practical part of it, like the logic part of it. I'm like, oh my God, this person's wildly successful, but they're not very talented, or they're not that genius, or whatever, but they got this stuff. So, interesting. How is that? So, you were saying, I'm sorry, can you repeat that once more?
The question that I had is,
what is manifesting?
What is manifesting? Is it chasing the dream? Is it?
Yeah, manifesting is really, another way of saying it is consciously creating your life. Okay, so versus unconsciously. So if we are more aware and awakened in our lives, right, then we start to notice choices that we can make that are going to give us experiences and outcomes and results in our lives.
Okay.
So it's more of just, we are all manifestors. We're always creating everything. Absolutely. Yeah. We're manifesting all the time, whether it be a job promotion, or a dream career, or the love of our lives, or a simple meal, we're creating.
As soon as we say, I'm going to do whatever, that actually, in fact, would be manifesting, right?
Absolutely. The problem is when we're creating on an unconscious level, we're not aware of it. So we don't have a choice. We don't realize, we have a choice. And we might even think, well, I know I've got some bad habits, or I know I've got some self-sabotaging, ways of thinking. I know I can get in my own way. I know I have self-doubt, right?
Yeah.
You might have that level of awareness and say, yeah, if I could get rid of this doubt, or if I could, be more confident, or if I could just, believe that I could have that life, or that the love, or, the money that I want in my life, that would help probably with me getting it. Right. But then the problem comes, well, what do I do to disappear that? What do I do to eradicate that from my life? And then, it's like, yeah, we need a recipe. We need a system. We need a step-by-step guide that's going to allow us to do that. So the way
you, in fact, Sterling, have created that system. It's called the AOM system. It's
right.
The acronym AOM. What does AOM mean? Is it
activate, optimize, and manifest?
Oh, there we go. So the AOM system, and for the listeners here too, I'll be including links to her websites and things at the end of this podcast here too. So on YouTube, click, follow the links. Okay, so I'll get you to explain more about your AOM system. So it's what's the AOM system? It's kind of like AA for your soul, or what?
Pretty much. For your life, really. I mean, because think about it like this, Maynard. This is something that is not only profound to get, but very simple to get. But when we think about what is our lives, like what is life for us, it is the most fundamental level is that it is just a series of creating something, experiencing it, creating something, experiencing it. So you create through your thoughts, even if like you're creating a meal, you still had to have that thought. So the steps to manifest and produce the results and experiences that you want is actually very simple. It starts with an idea, like, hey, I have an idea. I want some ice cream in my life, right? So the next step is that there's got to be an emotion that supports the idea. The emotion like, hey, yeah, I'm excited. That sounds like a good idea. I like that. That's an emotional response to the idea that supports it. The next one would be taking action. Okay, so I'm going to take this action of going to the store, come back home, voila, the idea manifested itself, from an idea to the material form. Very simplistic example, but it applies to everything. The problem is, Maynard, is that people will have an idea, but they won't have an emotional response that supports it. Their emotional response, like manifesting ice cream, like I just said, it's like, if that emotional response is like, no, I shouldn't, it's too high calorie, I can't have that, I shouldn't have that, here's my reasons, then it's never going to materialize.
So that in simplified form is just same as saying you're having someone, you have a dream, you want to pursue it, and then you have a dream stealer that's going to take that from you. Is that kind of the same analogy type of thing, or?
Exactly. It applies to everything. So the emotional response has to support the original idea. The other problem is people might be like, oh, I have an idea. I want to be in an amazing relationship. I want to have the love of my life be in my life, right? And the emotional response is like, wow, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, that's great. That supports the idea. Yeah, I know we could do this, we could do that. How fun. I'm so inspired. That's my emotion. But then the third step, taking action, that might be where it all goes south. So somewhere between either the desire or the action, because then in that example, oh, I don't know what action to take. I don't really know what to do to find that person. I'm not really sure. I'm, hesitant. I'm doubtful. I'm this, I'm that, I'm unclear, whatever it is. And when that goes south and that doesn't support it, then again, the original idea cannot be realized in the physical world.
I think we've all experienced that at some point in time, but we just never were consciously aware of that in the way you presented that. So with your AOM system, that's exactly what you're doing. You're guiding people to put this all together, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I do. And I absolutely love it because after 23, probably longer than that, years of using this system, there's been nothing but 100% success rate with everybody that's used it. So sometimes people come to me and they go, well, it works for everybody you've worked with, but what about me? And I go, there's only 2 criterias for it to work for you. Let's see if you fit the 2 criterias. Number 1, are you a human being? Yes. Okay, great. Well,
Start.
you're a human being. You're a creator. You're already created. Number 2, are you really ready for positive changes to come in? Are you really ready?
That's a pretty big question, isn't it, though?
No, it is, because some people may not be ready. You have to be ready. And it's funny how we are as human beings. We resist change, but change is the only constant in life. So why not embrace it and accept it and, stop fighting against it, because change is beautiful. I mean, my gosh, what if we didn't change our food? We didn't change our clothes. We didn't change, the weather didn't change. We didn't change our environment. You know what I mean? It's like change is a beautiful thing. We love it. Yeah. But it's funny how people get confronted because they could be moving in from, moving out of a studio apartment to a mansion. And then they're like, I feel apprehensive. I feel scared. Why is this? This is what I want. And it's like, then you got to ask yourself, are you going to accept this? Are you going to go for it? Are you ready for this? And if the answer is yes, then you proceed, you get the green light, you move forward, into that new life.
So do you help people get unstuck, like that can't get out of their own way? That being said, like a lot of people say they like to see change, but not very many people are prepared to change, right?
When you step up to the plate, and you say, I'm tired of the garbage, I'm tired of the BS, I'm tired of the crap, then you're ready. So it's like, you talk about getting unstuck. I've had so many people come to me. I had a client come to me, and she was a metro bus driver. And she was a single mother of a 2-year-old, and she really wanted to create this wealth in her life. And she tried on her own, literally for 18 months, and she just couldn't get anywhere. She was stuck. So when she came to me, it was within 2 months that she started really, like, it was at the end of 1 month, she gave up her metro bus driving job. Wow. Because she started making so much money as a financial investor and trader, which is what her real love and passion was. She's a very detail-oriented person. She loves to work in that medium, if you will.
Yeah.
And wildly successful, even, now, of course. But it was beautiful to watch that transformation and that change, and how her life, and then boom, just like that, she moves into, a 5-bedroom, beautiful house and buys a Mercedes, and she's just living that dream that she wanted. So I see these things happen very, very quickly. It's a fallacy. Pardon me. I'm not.
Take a drink.
Thank you.
This is a pretty informal podcast, and some days we use F-bombs like calm on this show here.
This just proves I'm human, right? Like,
that's right. I'd rather have human than.
I got a drink of water. I get choked up. Anyway, but it's a fallacy to believe that it takes time, or that it's hard work, or that all the things that we had been taught is absolutely untrue. And people, when they work with me, they start getting the results immediately, which is such a quick confidence booster. It's on that first session that their experience of everything in their life completely changes, very dramatically.
Their
And
experience or their perception? Their
both.
experience or
Oh,
their perception?
both. Absolutely both. Which puts them in this perfect, like they notice, they're like, oh my God, all my stress is gone. I feel peaceful. I feel really good. I feel clear. And I go, that's a perfect place to start mapping out your future. You can't do it with a bunch of boulders in your way and blocks and,
Yeah.
and feeling bad. And, you cannot access your future. And so a lot of people who are familiar with manifesting, or they've tried it, or they've seen TikTok videos or stuff on YouTube, the real critical step that most people omit is that you must remove the blocks first. So right? It's true,
Yeah.
but most people don't even realize this. Those things must go. And what's more is that it can go like in one session. It's not like taking 14 years of therapy to kind of get rid of all that trauma and stuff. No,
Yeah.
that has not been my experience, in 23 years of doing this. Absolutely not. It could be very, very instantaneous, and it always is. So then 2 days later, you're having that next session. Now they can actually really envision what it is that they want and not feel like it's not possible, but rather feel like, I feel this can be. I know this can be. And then I work with them to guide them on how to effectively create their future. There's an art form to it, how to do it in a way that's actually really effective. So I help them with that. And that's, the second part of the 4 parts that make up my system. But yeah, that's the exciting thing about it, is that you don't have to work hard, and you do not have to wait for results or changes. Absolutely not. And it's a beautiful thing to watch people discover.
But uh, I don't like. Are we? You're saying this? You could expedite one's position through wishful thinking by clearing out your negatives. Wishful thinking, you can move forward, or are we saying that people have so many negative blocks? Once they deal with them, they can move forward a lot quicker?
Pretty much what you said on the second part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're identifying where the blocks are, what the blocks are. And then
Yeah.
I help them identify where it originated from. There's so much power when we're able to define where something originated from. And it's like poof, that false belief, that block is immediately removed through the techniques that I use on that first session. So it's really about that process that allows these things to go away, that once had determined and drove our lives and determined our experiences and determined our outcomes. Those things disappear. They never, ever have to be experienced again. It's really amazing. It's really, really fascinating. People feel very fearless because our blocks are rooted in fear.
It's pretty empowering, actually, is what it is. What's Yeah, pretty empowering. I know exactly what you're saying. So, what type of people do you see over the last 20 years? What type of people have you dealt with? You spoke of a bus driver.
Yeah, right. So many. I mean, doctors and lawyers, celebrities and entrepreneurs, people all over the world. They're all very different in their dreams and desires in some ways, because they are all living a unique life. But then
Yeah.
there's commonalities too, which is they all want success, happiness, abundance and health. We all want the same thing. We don't want to suffer in life. I always joke and say even hardened criminals don't want to suffer. They might create a lot of suffering,
Yeah.
but they actually don't want to. And it made me think about a news story I saw one time where they were all like, complaining and suffering because they didn't have TV or something like that. Like, it's like, it just proves they don't, it's like nobody wants to suffer. Of course they don't. They just don't know how not to. But through this process, they realize that suffering is absolutely optional and that they don't have to suffer anymore, because creating the things that we want in our lives and our dreams and our hopes or whatever it is, that's all great and fine. But what I emphasize here is that the experience is just as divine and just as important, and that's why you have people have all this money and and then they're so depressed, and then they just like take themselves out of life, and everybody's like, what? They had everything. They had these beautiful children, they had all this money, opportunities, they had all these people adoring them, looking up to them. Like, what did they not have? They did not have the experience to go along with it. They didn't have the peace, the love, the joy, the excitement, the enthusiasm. So the experience of life is just as important as having and getting the things that we want in life. I remember when I was a little kid, Maynard, I was on my school bus, and I was probably about 10. I don't know what prompted me. I kid you not. I don't know. But I started asking my classmates, and I said, what do you want in life? Success or happiness?
Yeah.
And
Can't have them both, eh?
and what was interesting was they all said like success, 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 really. And then I said to them, why not both? Why not both? Who said you can't have both? And there's a lot of people in the world that do have both because they know how to produce that. But it's a small percentile. But here's the thing. They're no different than any of us. They just understand some things, some principles in life and how things work that others don't. That's the only difference. So that information is available to everyone. This is the information that I share with the world so that everybody can be having that life that they aspire. It's just a matter of tools and a perspective.
So it's kind of like a mind over matter thing. That's not the wrong analogy.
Funny you should say that. It reminds me of when people say fake it till you make it. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work because you're using resistance to get something. You can fake it, but you're not really going to make it, because if you're not convinced, nobody else is ultimately going to be convinced. You can pretend and things like that, but that's not sustainable. And if you're not believing in what it is that you're creating or who you are, ultimately you're going to fail with yourself and everybody else. So when it's going back to this mind over matter, you can't force it. It's not about forcing it. In fact, it's about non-resistance, no force. And that's the beauty of it, because when you start doing this work, you realize, oh my God, life is so easy. Yeah, it's easy because you're not forcing. You're not forcing. You're just allowing things to unfold on its own.
So when you deal with people that have monetarily achieved high levels and they're not necessarily content, what are they manifesting? What are they looking to improve?
They are looking for the success to go along with the happiness. So they're looking for the happiness to go with their success, right? So they want to be re-energized. They want to re-experience, maybe what was happening in the beginning. They were doing things in the, right kind of way, if you will, when they first started out. And I was so passionate and I love this and everything. Didn't even matter what happened. I was so excited about doing it. I followed my bliss and the rest followed, that kind of theory. And they understood that. But then they lost it along the way, or they didn't realize why or how or understand why that was. It's kind of like a happy accident, so to speak. It's like a
Yeah.
hit and miss kind of thing. And so they come to me and they go, how come I was able to do that then, but I can't do it now? And it's because they got, it was a hit or miss thing. Like, we've all had great things happen in our lives, what we wanted to happen in our lives. The problem is we didn't understand how we created that result. And yes, we did create it. So when people work with me, they start to understand how they created it so they can duplicate it, so they can continue, and it's not hit or miss. They're not throwing the dart at the dartboard hoping to hit the bullseye, with the blindfold on.
So have you ever like started out with clients that are just like total disasters with minimal of desire, and like how low can you go with manifesting
Oh my
to
gosh.
improve one situation, right? Like,
Oh, I had
tell me a story. Tell me a story here, Mel.
yeah, I had a client of mine come in to see me, and he was just shattered, like on the floor crying, shattered. He said, my fiance just left me. She didn't tell me why. Her son from a previous, relationship, who he really bonded with, he felt the loss and was grieving that as well. He said, I have nothing going on in my career. I am broken. Can you fix me? Can you help me? Yeah.
Wow.
He was an aspiring musician, that was his passion in life. So this is the funniest story. I mean, it's really amazing. So I said, yes, of course I can help you, and of course he was ready to be helped, right? He wanted to get past all that.
Yeah, I bet you
So,
he did. Yeah.
so then cut forward 2 weeks later, he, out of the blue, was nothing in the works before, meeting me or anything like that. Out of the blue, he gets asked to be the co-songwriter with the very Grammy award-winning, very famous Rihanna. And we talked about it. I said, how do you tell me more about how you produce this result? He said, well, first of all, it came completely out of the blue. Second of all, I really believe, I know for a fact it came from working with you and your tools and your system. And so immediately there he was, living in like the guest house next to the studio in Malibu, working, because they were working all the time. So he was staying over there. All these amazing things started happening. I mean, the list goes on and on. It took him an hour and a half after 30 days just to tell me all the things that are different and changed for the better. 1 hour and a half. How radically different his life was.
In 30 days.
In 30 days. So here's the really funny part of the story. At the end of an hour and a half of him telling me everything that's great and changed, I said, did you forget something? And he said, no. I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah. And I said, what about that broken heart you came into my office with? And he goes, oh, oh yeah, I totally forgot. It seems like it happened lifetimes ago. I said, no, it was just 30 days ago.
Go. Wow. What a change, eh?
Right?
And then once those issues were released, then he could move forward from there.
That's why I was talking about no hard work, came out of the blue, right? There wasn't any hard work involved. There wasn't any, time involved even. It was all about removing those blocks so he could just simply receive that which was his heart's desire.
Yeah.
So, right.
So he had a lot of opportunity sitting on his doorstep. So let's take a look at Mick employee, what I call a Mick employees, like a Mick manager or Mick mechanic or whatever. So McDonald's punches out a lot of hamburgers and stuff. They punch out a lot of people. So the people are more or less another part of the process. Does that make sense? So you rob the person of the identity and you have a Mick employee. So that's how I come to the Mick employee, the Mick manager, or the Mick boss, or the Mick, right? So someone at that level, how can they use manifesting to put themselves where they want to be?
Well, it's really basically the same approach, for everybody. It's removing those blocks and finding effective ways of doing so, getting out of our own way. It's true that the things that we want do want us, and that's not the issue. It's already there. It's just a matter of like really removing those blocks and clarifying what it is that you want. And even if you're in a dead end job and you're like, I just know I want something so much better than this. I don't even know what my purpose is. I don't even know what job it is. People come to me all the time saying that I just want something better. I don't like this job. Okay, great. So what's interesting is transforming that relationship that they have to their current job is actually really important. And so what's funny is that the minute they actually start loving the current job, it gets taken away and something way better shows up.
gets replaced, eh?
Absolutely.
Is it because subconsciously they start looking for things?
It's because I really believe, I do believe in the phrase that what you resist persists. So if you're resisting the current job, you're pushing back on it, you're going to get more of what you don't want, which is stuck in the job with no prospects, no nothing, just day after day drudgery. So you stop resisting it, and that leaves the equation. Then you're left with a place, of peace, and you're left feeling freedom, liberation, peace, gratitude, whatever, could be, things like that. And what's interesting is that all these things or people start coming to you, they're attracted to you, including opportunities. Is when I was talking about the bus driver, right? One of the things she noticed within a couple of weeks, she goes, oh my God, people are coming up to me and they're asking me about this and that. I feel like I have like this whole village around me. Like I got all these people coming in, and I go, yeah, because you shifted, and that just boom showed up like that. And she was a good example. Like she was really enjoying her job. That didn't mean that she wanted to be a bus driver forever, but it was ironic to her. She's like, I never loved my job so much and everything. It's almost bittersweet to say goodbye. It's like, but she remained friends with everybody. So, yeah.
That increases her network, right? Network of people, right?
Right, exactly. Her whole village increased. So her tribes. But yeah, it's really amazing to watch these things, and it's very exciting for me to see, people's these successes. The success of my life is direct derivative from my client successes, and I celebrate with them, and it's just beautiful to watch it unfold. They become or embody that which they want. And it's like the whole world responds and goes, okay, we see it. We agree. Yep. And they give in kind, they receive in kind.
So once they've mastered the system of AOM, then do you ever see them again for touch-ups or once a year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We do. Yeah. I work with people for a period of time, like 6 months. At that point, they can join the graduate group and continue.
So you've got groups outside of your system, right?
We have communities and groups and that kind of thing. And some of them remain my one-on-one clients, for instance. So there's different avenues that they can take. And to stay in that conversation, to stay, field, so to speak, and to stay on track. Because when you look around the world, you're living this amazing life, right? You need a network, you need a source to like uphold that, to keep that on track. Because if you relied on the majority of people around you, they're not, and they're not
There's
really.
a couple of negative Nancy's. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's all this information we're bombarded with to keep
Yeah.
us down, so to speak, and that's why the happy, successful people in the world, or the unhappy, unsuccessful people in the world outnumber the ones that are. And that's the only reason why. It doesn't have anything to do with lack. Well, there's only so much this, so only so much can grow. No, it doesn't have anything to do with that at all whatsoever. We live in an abundant planet because we see the abundance in nature. I always love the flower that grows out of the cracked concrete. It's like I'm going to be who I was always meant to be, regardless of the circumstances.
What you do, yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Regardless of the world that surrounds me that's trying to choke me off, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, and you can only stop Mother Nature. You can only stop Mother Nature for so long, and it will reclaim itself.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that the power of manifesting?
Yeah.
Do you teach that? Is that a good analogy there?
It's a great analogy.
Put it in mechanic terms for the old guy here.
The mechanic term. Well, I got a good story for you, because when I was young and I knew I wanted to live life fully. I mean, I really did know that at a very young age. I came in with enthusiasm and I was like, hey, what's this wonderland? I want to discover it all. I want to, check it all out. Like, this big amusement park. I want to ride all the rides. I want to see what's out there. And so I felt like, if destination, here's an analogy again, right? A metaphor. If destination were the things that I wanted to experience and produce in my life, I needed a vehicle to get me there. If I want to go to New York City, I need a vehicle to get me there. Yeah. Doesn't it behoove me to have a map? I know where I'm going. I've got that sorted out. And I have a map and I know how the car works. If anything happens, I can just I've got the know-how. I've got the tools to take care of that car, that vehicle, which is alike ourselves. Yeah. If I know how to work that, then I can get there. Right? Like, I can manage that car. I can work on that car, make sure it's running at its optimal best. I've got some maps. So I got the tools. I got the map. Destination sorted out, all covered. So there's my there's my mechanic story for you.
There you go. There you go. So you threw a word out at the very, very first of this conversation here, Sterling, and that was the word gratitude. I picked up on that. You had mentioned gratitude. So in the process of manifesting, just how important is gratitude?
It's very important, because if there's what's really important and people often struggle with is that, first of all, there's no past, there's no present, there's only the moment, right? Like, where do you exist, Maynard? Like, any time of the day, it's always in that moment, right?
Yep.
You're always right there. So we really have to understand how to live as if the reality that we have thought up is already happening, is a done deal. It's already happening. It's happening right now in the present moment. And this is where people are like, how do I do that? Which I help people. Actually, it's actually sounds like a big riddle, but it's actually more easier than one can imagine. But so this is what's really important, is understanding how to live in that reality. If you're living in that reality, this is what I wrote on my paper, or whatever, said that my life is going to be like in all areas of my life. You've got health, you've got finances, you've got career job, you've got relationships of all sorts, you got home, you got travel adventures, right? And we map all that out. If you know that's already happening and that's the life you're living right now, then gratitude is great because you're like, thank you. I already have this now. Also, another way of looking at it is like, if you're a gardener or you're a farmer, for instance, they're great manifestors in the sense that they know they have the knowledge and the tools to create, fruit or tree or flowers or whatever from a process. They don't question it. They plant those seeds, they tend to it, they water it, and they go, it's already here. It's just in the seed form. It's taken root. It's going to pop up. Then I'm going to have it in this physical form. They don't ever question it. And, it's like they're grateful for the process. They go, this is great. I'm grateful. This is awesome. I planted it. I watered it and all this stuff. And here it is. It's coming.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, gratitude is very important. But I also believe it's not just gratitude for what you can touch and feel like I'm grateful I have this, but really it goes beyond that. It's about gratitude for what is actually materializing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because we can just be complacent in our lives and just express gratitude for everything that we have in the current moment.
Yeah.
But where do you go from there? I mean, we're not complacent by nature.
No, but we get suppressed by society, though, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I hope one day we can talk about the origins of that. Where did all that come from? Where did all this misinformation and all these fallacies and false beliefs and lies come from? How did that all get started? Yeah, that's a great conversation in itself.
Yeah, I see that a lot in building teams and stuff like that, where I'll have A performers on a team that are at a high level, and those that can't meet that level attempt to pull that person backwards. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I work
all the time. Yeah, all the time. I see that.
Yeah, I work with companies for that reason, because everybody needs to be on the same page. You're only as strong as your weakest link kind of thing. So if everybody has a modality to work, then everybody can be in unison. They can be in alignment. Everything just pops from there really quickly because, that's just how it works. There's not anybody moving in the wrong direction. There's a flow. It's like a symphony, right? If somebody's playing some bad notes and somebody's playing the correct notes, and it's just noise, right? But when everybody's playing together, it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's magical.
Yeah, but the trick there is to embrace the difference, right? I've seen so many supervisors in my career that actually they wish this guy could be like that guy, and that guy could do as much as this guy. And reality is, and I say it to the guys all the time that I work with, is if we have 10 people on the team, one guy's going to be short and small like me. I'm going to fit under certain pieces of equipment that you can't go into. The next guy might be strong electronically. Next guy hydraulically. Next guy might just have brute sheer strength on his side. But everyone brings something to the team. And when I have that team bringing what they can as a group, then I can do all kinds of things. Yeah. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to get to the same place. So I give it a mathematical formula for everyone. And it's in my book too. That 1 and 9 is 10, 5 and 5 is 10, 6 and 4 is 10, 3 and 7 is 10, 2 and 8 is 10. In the end, it's all 10. There's different ways to get there, and none of them wrong.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's simple as that, right?
Yeah, but look what you've created from that, and with everything.
I've created a book. I've got an online course with 8 books inside that subsection, a podcast, and 26 in the year of execution. 25 is the year of completion, right? This has been 18 months to get to this stage. I'm building a very complex setup that can support companies and people and stuff like that. But I'm having a lot of fun doing it, right? And I guess going back to the gratitude thing, this last 2 years for this Australian company I'm working with, I'm 65 and I'm working with mechanics in their mid 20s to late 30s. So these guys, half my age, my mustache is older than most of them, for crying out loud. And yeah, so Grampy, with a lot of guys call me Grampy and stuff like that, but I keep pace with them. A lot of these guys, I do a 14-day shift. I'll go into 14 nights starting tonight from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. By day 10, I'll have this next crew coming up. I'll have about 50% of that crew in bed by 3 a.m. and waiting. Like I'll leave them in the dust halfway through the shift, right? And that's because I'm appreciative of where I'm at. I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at right now, helping other people in those slow times at work. What I do is I'm researching, reading, and learning about what I'm building here right now. So it's an ongoing process, but just happy to be as it is. It's amazing, eh?
It
So
really is.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, amazingly enough. But like I said, it's working with young guys. Wow. I can see the evolution of me. I can see all the mistakes I made so clearly. It's so amazing. Right?
Right. You're a teacher, which is beautiful. And
Yeah.
the fact that you've got this gratitude, which allows more things to come in, you're in that groove, if you will, of all acknowledging what you have and therefore inviting more of what you want to have.
Yeah. I'd like to see people have a better day at work. And,
Yeah.
the magic's within themselves. Much the same as what you have with your AOM system. Is people have that magic within themselves and pulling that out would be my game, similar to your game. So if you could give people one basic thing to get things going, to change what they're not happy with in their lives, but what bit of advice would that be? What would you think, Sterling?
What's really important, a good place to start would be with letting go / forgiveness. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, letting all of that go is really important. And a lot of people don't even understand what effective, I'll call it, forgiving is. Forgiving is not what a lot of people express forgiving as like, you know what? I don't want to be upset about this. I forgive you, but I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to fool with you. I'm moving on. That's not forgiveness. A lot of people think that's forgiveness, is that they decided against somebody. It's like, I forgive you, but I don't want to see you anymore, and true forgiveness is allowing grace. It's not agreement. It's not saying I agree with what you did or it's okay what you did, meaning like I agree with it, it's okay. It's not that. It's about acknowledging, giving someone grace and saying, okay, it's all right. You made a mistake. And I forgive you. And I know that you're only human and we're all imperfect, but we're all here to learn and grow and evolve as human beings. And like I always say, we're perfect as we are in the moment, even though we're evolving and growing all the time. We're learning all the time. Nobody gets away with anything. You're not letting anybody off the hook. If they're creating something that was, hurtful towards you, they will get their time to experience the same on the other side of what you're experiencing. Like it will come back. It'll take care of itself until they've learned what there is to learn about it. But true forgiveness is allowing grace and allowing people to make mistakes. And then there's a whole nother conversation about boundaries as well. That's another thing. However, the first thing is forgiveness and letting go, because when we do, we release ourselves. We're no longer in prison. We're no longer holding ourselves back. We're no longer, trapped. Okay.
So
So
when
now
you fixate on a negative event, basically you're trapping yourself.
Right, exactly. And so we're really releasing ourselves as we're giving some grace and compassion to others who are, still struggling or whatever, learning something. And then, that is a beautiful gift in itself, because then that person can learn something. They can grow and evolve and become their better self, if you will, by learning something. What was the value in it out of my mistake, right? And that's another thing people don't realize is, how do you learn from mistakes? People beat themselves up and things like that. So here's the analogy I use for that, because that's the other side of the coin. I forgive you. Okay, now that person is there to learn something from it. And it goes for us too. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm forgiven. So what did I learn? What was valuable? Why was this such a great thing? I know it sounds crazy and very dramatic, but it is, because the way it effectively works is if we approach the mistake like Hollywood actors do, right? Hollywood actors, what they do, there's a take. They do a take. Then they go, oh, that wasn't too good. I made mistakes in that take.
Yeah.
But you know what? I learned something. I realized something. And now I'm clear on that. Let me give it another go. Let me give it another go. I'm going to give it another go. I think I got this take. This is it. Boom, and maybe sometimes the mistake goes on for a little while, but eventually at some point, could be the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th take, they nail it. They learned each time. And that's the beauty of mistakes, a mistake. But of course, they would never have nailed it if they were like, I can't do this. I made a mistake and forget it. And it's your fault. It's your fault. I was like,
Yeah.
do it. Then it would have never, it would never happen. They wouldn't have learned anything from it. So mistakes are a beautiful thing. And it's easy to see it when I give it in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that you're asking me about. Just like forgiveness, learning from mistakes, and seeing the beauty in both of them as it was always intended, so to speak, and not through the distorted ways that we've been taught in society with the cancel culture. Oh, you made a mistake. You're canceled, we're writing you off. And it's like, what? I'm not allowed to make a mistake and learn from it? No, that's just not how it goes. I mean, that doesn't work. Let's put it that way.
But that being said, like I've been terminated from positions before because I was too outspoken, too dynamic in that position. I was doing the position well, but once again, we have others that didn't like my position and wanted that position. That's a good way to say it. But upon completion of that portion of my professional career, that's one of the biggest lessons I took from that is not to bring the negativity forward, right? Because there is so much. I can go into a place now after 20 years in the sands up here. I can walk into the office. I can feel the energy of that office. I can tell you who the players are, who the snakes are, and who the champions are, right? Within sections. I suspect, Sterling, you can as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, so for the listeners out there, if you're a little bit down on yourself, you might want to consider who you're hanging around with. and I think it's Sterling saying here is take that as a lesson. Take it with gratitude. And it's like one guy told me back in the day, wow, we're going back into the 80s now, last century. And I just got out of the Navy and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And I lent the guy $20 to the next payday. The next payday, I could never find that guy again. And one guy told me, he says, well, that's pretty cheap to find out what he was like. right? So that being said, when people do you wrong, let it go. Put it behind you. Take it as a learning lesson. And once again, that's just the cheapest way you can find out what that person's all about. And that person over the years will either change the good or change the bad. But everybody's on a route of change. And that's where Sterling comes in, manifesting everything for us. So Sterling, you've got websites. I saw 2 websites. Have you got any books out there too?
I do. I have the AOM system, Manifestation Mastery in 30 Days on Barnes and Noble and Amazon.
Okay. So I'm going to get that link to those off you, and I'll put that in this podcast when I post it as well too. So if somebody, one of my listeners, wants to get a hold of you, would like to work with you, what's the easiest way for them to do that? Grab you on Facebook?
Um, directly to the website is fine. They can go there, theaomsystem.com,
Yeah. Okay.
um, or even getyourlifenow.com. They're actually one and the same.
Yeah,
But
I follow it. And there's a third link there too, eh? Um,
no, it's just those two. And then there's the book. There's a lot of modalities for accessing this work. People can work one-on-one. They can do intensive weekends with small groups. There's video series. There is some courses that they can
no,
take.
there's tons of things.
There's a lot of things, absolutely, and yeah, it's a fun site to kind of go look around and see what treasures you discover, and how you can play with the place within the place. But yeah, and I love working with people, and I truly enjoy it. It's amazing to watch somebody's life change so dramatically right before my eyes. It's like, wow. It's like,
It must be pretty fulfilling, eh?
huh?
It must be pretty fulfilling, right?
My favorite part of my job, like I have all these, I am a participant, I have incredible breakthroughs and manifestations and stories that I could tell you forever. It's like the first time I was experimenting with my system, I manifested a black BMW convertible for free to kind of test out my method. And it was really exciting, so I'm having this extraordinary experience as well, manifesting things, but it's really fun to watch other people manifesting things because it's such a surprise to them. It's a surprise to me, yes, when I do, and I'm in awe and all that, and I discover this like awesome experience every time I do. But there is nothing like watching somebody's face, and they're like, oh, wow, like this is amazing. And it's like, yeah, I love that.
So have you actually just said, I want a black BMW, and within days it magically appears?
Within,
I'm a mechanic. I'm a mechanic. I could do that. I could say, I'd love to have a Chev with a great big fat Duramax engine in 2024. And next thing I know, I'd have a 2024 GMC Denali show up in the dooryard with a rod out to the side of the block, needing $20,000 worth of work. That's the way I manifest stuff, right? But like, have you ever done anything like that? Like manifested for a material object and it just appeared?
Well, all the time. I mean, that car, for instance, the black BMW, I manifested it within 2 weeks. I mean, all the time. I manifest things all the time. Absolutely.
That's pretty powerful.
And it's amazing. I remember one time I was like, I want to do, this is like years ago when I was first experimenting with my system over like 20 years ago. But I remember manifesting like, I want to record something. I need a recording studio. I want a recording studio, right? I had no clue. I had nobody to ask. I didn't even know the first place to start. But I just, through the work that I teach, knew how to embody it as a reality now. Kid you not, out of the blue, I get an invitation to go to a party the next day. Somebody I don't even know. It was like a friend of a friend. It absolutely came out of the blue. And I show up there, first immediately started talking to this guy just by coincidence. And he was like, I just created my studio in my 10,000 square foot home. I've got built this whole studio and I'm looking for people to record, like that. And I was like, very next day.
Wow.
And it, I mean, manifesting is absolutely true and real if you know how to do it. You look at a situation like that and you go, what are the likelihood? It's like, that's not very common, right?
Yeah.
Occurrence. But, it is if you know how to do it. It really is. There's
Wow,
no limitations.
that's amazing. I'm really fascinated now because I did a Facebook Go Live looking for a studio or a stage to perform on to record for my talkers, my speakers website type of thing. And I didn't get any traction on that. I thought I'll have to relook at that, see what I did wrong. So take two, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Heck,
That's all take two,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's something about what I'm hearing you say is you're on a good track,
Yeah, I'm
but
going.
the minor adjustment, I think, would be you really getting that you already have it.
I found
Um,
it. Actually, I found the workaround.
oh, did you? Well,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
found
I
it.
did. I did find a workaround with a virtual backdrop and stuff like
Okay.
that using AI. It's just AI thing. It's just a whole topic for another day. Like for a guy 65 years of age, I'm the AI guru at work, right? Like I use AI for so many things, right? So I actually will have a virtual backdrop in on my recording, and I do my editing using AI, right? So I'll be able to do
Yeah.
my talk in this backdrop in behind me, which is my actual basement studio here. I'll just put a different total backdrop on that using AI, right?
So you
And
you did you did create it. You
I
did
created,
create
yeah, I
You
did,
just
yeah.
wrote it a little different than you originally imagined.
Well, I'm looking for a studio. See, I'm in the far north, so my nearest professional studio to my location right now is 500 kilometers to the south, which is about 350 miles, 5-hour drive. Then to transport what I got to do down there, rehearse, blah 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 blah. But everything I'm looking to do it locally. It's basically what my drive is here, and yeah, just through the process of thinking about it. And, oh hey, and then God love Facebook. Up on my Facebook feed pops, hey, look at this, a virtual background. Wow, that's exactly what I wanted. So it came to me just a little bit differently, I guess. So, but on days off, that's what I'll do. I'll do some of my website building on for that website, and yeah, that was kind of cool. So
You know what I'm hearing you say too is that when you had that idea, you the process that kind of took place was like, okay, let me think about it, let me this, let me that. Like I I just heard you moving through the process without any stops or blockages like, oh, how's this ever going to happen? Is it going to be impossible? Like you were actually being, which is like there's a whole thing I talk about as far as being, um who you are being determines where you go, and you were being unstoppable about it, and you were just like, okay, I'm just going to continue on, see what happens, like just stay on the course,
I
and
thought you were
then
going to tell me I manifested it.
you did.
Yeah, there we go. So that was a true manifest.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
I,
absolutely
I
was.
actually, when I came off of this rotation, the wife and I went to the Legion, which is kind of like a veterans club here in Canada, and I was going to ask. This is so funny. This is a funny story. I was going to ask the bar manager if I could see their stage or their auditorium area that I could use that for filming, and I was going to get the wife and the video cam to filming stuff like that. I didn't even get the chance to ask the bar manager if I could see the stage or use the stage or rent the stage when a colleague from work came over. I didn't even know was a Legion member, and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Well, I'm doing this, that, this, that, this. Oh, I'll show you the stage right now. It took me right in. It wasn't adequate for what I wanted, and the acoustics weren't correct, but it was the process. And then I said, I don't know if that's going to work. He says, well, I can get you in at the Union Hall too. And all of a sudden, these offers just start coming at me, right? But the vision I have for my website, my speaking website, is different than that of the author website and the online course. But just by knowing what I wanted, envisioning what that 3-minute video is going to look like, it just came to me about a virtual background. I don't know where that come from because I'm a mechanic, and I was thinking of virtual background. I never even mentioned it to my wife Debbie. I just talked to myself because I do that a lot, and it's a mechanic thing. And bang, like I said, it pops up on my Facebook feed. Sometimes I think, oh, they're plugged in me pretty intense sometimes because everything just kind of pops up. That's where you came from.
Yeah, that's how we met.
That's how we met. That's how we met, was off of Facebook. And I'll throw a little bit more of a funny story into that. That's kind of why I believe it manifested, because at the end of my last 14-day rotation, I didn't have any back episodes of my podcast recorder because while I'm building this speaking career and the online course and all this stuff, I'm still podcasting, right? And podcast is not monetized; it's the labor of love. And I'm thinking, geez, I need some guests. Bang, 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 bang. And I've been approaching some higher profile guests that I've actually landed, as a matter of fact. But while I was doing that, you popped up on my feed. Yesterday, I talked to a young lady who went through hell in personal relationships and rebuilt her life, very similar to manifesting. Rebuilt her life, and now she's teaching people how to do that. And what's today? Today's Wednesday. Monday, I recorded with a couple in Great Britain who have ADHD, and they got together off of Tinder. We're living together for 2 years before they realized he had ADHD, which started to excuse a lot of his little idiosyncrasies, right? So, yeah, just by looking up here for those guests, here we are. Amazing, eh?
But you were absolutely open to receive it, you know, and I can tell. Yeah, absolutely. I can tell it's inside of who you're being that's allowing that to happen. Yeah. And which is also why, yeah, I connected with you. I didn't connect with, I was just looking around. Okay, so
is that how you stumbled across me?
Yeah, I was just looking around. It popped up. I was just exploring. Yeah. And the only, there was something distinct about you. Call it what you will. I don't know any other word to describe it, but whatever, your energy is or who you're being, I noticed it, or I was able to identify it. And
I just had to manifest you here. That's all I had to do.
Yeah, because there's a mirror of energy, so to speak. That's like a way to put it. Like, this is like attracts like. There you go. And here we are.
Amazing. We're at 1:12 already on our episode. And I can talk all day. So I'm going to close this off. I'm going to ask you, Sterling, to stay on with me as I download the files and that so I can edit them after. But I really, really do appreciate all the time you've given me here today. And you've answered some questions without even knowing you're being questioned. Does that make sense? And thank you so much for your tips for all my listeners. So if you think you're not in the right place, you want to be somewhere else, and you need guidance, and you need someone to show you how to get there through manifesting, look up Sterling, man. So I'm going to tell you that it will help you. So that being said, thank you for all the followers. Don't forget to like, comment. I've got like one video out there, guys. My YouTube channel got 67,000 views and about 10 comments. So let's chat it up there a little bit. I'd like to see some more comments. And thank you for all the following. And we'll catch you next week on another episode. Here's a Trust. Sterling, once again, I'm chasing a mouse here because I put an extra monitor. I'm running with 3 monitors here because sometimes my podcasts are a little bit technical. There it is. Let's go up and get the mouse, folks. So now I can close it off. So thank you once again for listening, and we'll be catching us again on another episode. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Here we go. Bye-bye.